Ramesh, how are you?
Sir, we are ready to start. Just waiting for your confirmation.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all the respected sir. I welcome all the respected dignitaries who have given their insights as well as contribution for the development of solar mini grid projects across the globe. So I'm just giving you the brief about how this this session will be going to go through. The opening session will be given, the welcome remarks will be given by DG sir, Dr. Ajay Mathur. Second, it will be followed by the presentation from Mr. William Brent, who is available virtually from Hus Power, followed by a presentation from Mr. Sugata Mukherjee from Tata Power. Then there is a presentation from Mr. Ganpati ji from OMC Power. After that, there will be a panel discussion, which will be taken care by Ramesh Kumar. And I welcome all the dignitaries from all the respected areas where who has done the installation and commissioning of solar mini grid across the globe. And I also welcome Mr. Rohit Chandra, who is available virtually from CEO from OMC Power. So now let's move further. And I request our DG, Mr. Dr. Ajay Mathur, to give the opening remarks and context setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhanshu. Thank you, colleagues, Rohit, William, and I see a number of friends there as well. So a very good afternoon to all of you. And I'm delighted that we are all part of this session, which the ISA has been proud to put together at the India Energy Week. We note that, sorry, I dropped my phone. We note that as we move ahead, providing energy access to all, and particularly energy access to all rural populations, is important for all countries. We also note that today, of the people who are unserved, roughly 75% live in rural areas. And that half of the secondary schools, quarter of the health facilities in Africa have no power. In fact, their establishment has been held back because of the lack of power. Consequently, in order to provide prosperity at a transformative scale, we need to ensure that we are able to build up solar power, particularly mini grid solar, to meet all of these rural energy access issues. We discussed about it at great length in the G20 meeting of the Energy Transition Working Group. I'm personally sorry that I'm not with you in Bangalore. I was there till day before yesterday, but yesterday, a new country, New Zealand, signed the framework agreement of the International Solar Alliance, and hence I had to come back to Delhi. But one of the things that we discussed at the Energy Transition Working Group is how is it that the G20 countries can enable the rest of the world to be in a position where solar mini grids can be used to provide the rural energy access that is needed. Our analysis tells us that rural mini grids based on solar plus backup batteries is dependent on two things. One is how far is it from the main grid today? Where is the use point? And the second is what is the kind of population density that is there? If the population density is very high, say in a city, grids will take the cake anyway. If there is very, very sparse population, less than 400 people per square kilometer, solar home systems are what is needed. But in between, solar mini grids become the most cost-effective way to supply electricity to people. This, of course, means that there have to be regulatory mechanisms which enable people to invest. I'm glad that Mr. Rohit Chandra and Mr. William Brent are here with us. Both of them run companies which provide access, particularly to electricity in rural areas, and have shown that this is a viable model for the private sector. However, I don't think I will be stealing from their thunder when I say that regulatory mechanisms are essential for this kind of investment to occur. We will discuss the various key market drivers that are important. How can we leverage funding? Apart from regulations, how is it that we can leverage funding from funding organizations for this purpose? How do we ensure that customers get the level of service that they contract for? And also in the longer term, how do we reduce the cost of electricity that is provided from the solar mini grids? We have, as we move ahead, recognize that this area needs both resources to flow in on the one hand and developers, startups, entrepreneurs on the other hand. Consequently, the International Solar Alliance has initiated a solar facility which will provide guarantee mechanisms for smaller projects, not for large grid farm-based projects, but for smaller projects, where payment guarantees will hopefully provide the kind of confidence that investors need to invest in startups which look at providing rural energy access. And on the other hand, to promote those startups, we have this year launched a program called the Solar X Grant Challenge, with the view of identifying up to 20 startups in Africa who could, amongst other things, start off by providing this kind of energy access that is needed. We hope that through this seminar, through the G20, we'll be able to reach out with these messages to as many people as possible and create the kind of infrastructure, the kind of environment that is needed for solar mini grids to thrive. I again thank you for your presence here and look forward to a stimulating discussion. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks a lot, sir, for sharing your thoughts and setting up the context for this particular presentation session. Now, I request Mr. William Brent, Chief Marketing Officer from HuskPower, to share his presentation and thoughts of scaling solar mini grid across the globe. Thank you. Mr. William, you're not audible. Your presentation is visible, but you're not audible, sir.
Okay, that should be
Yeah, now
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
all right.
you're audible, sir. Thank you.
Great. Sorry about that. And first, thank you so much to my friend Dr. Mathur and to the International Solar Alliance for organizing this great event and pulling together so many great speakers. As you mentioned, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Husk Power. Husk, just briefly, as background, is actually was founded in India 15 years ago. We pioneered the mini-grid industry at that time, originally using waste biomass gasification, and since then pivoting more towards solar plus batteries, still with some biomass gasification in it. We build, own, and operate mini grids with either biomass or solar. We announced that a major milestone for the industry just earlier in January that we had reached corporate profitability in Q4 of 2022. We hope that's a strong signal to the market that others can also be profitable and create a viable business model. We have more than 150 mini grids in operation. We've just surpassed 500 employees. To date, we've raised about $40 million in equity and debt, and we're in the process of raising another $80 to $100 million to scale 10x from 150 to 1,500 mini grids in the next few years. We've also focused very much on our business model and have achieved, significant progress in terms of both revenue per user as well as our levelized cost of energy. And we feel as if we're in a very good place as a company, and hopefully helping to lead the way for the industry. That said, we've looked around and sorry, don't seem to be able to advance my slide.
Can somebody help?
Yeah, Mr. William, your slide is not moving. Just a second.
Can we take? Can we move the slides? Can we take over and move the slides from here?
Is that working? Can you see it now?
Mr. William, what you can do is that you can share your PPT with us. We can display it from here.
Okay, give me 1 second to
Yep.
do that. Should I send that to you, Sudhanshu?
You just send it to me, sir. I will do it.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me just give me 1 second. Okay. That's sent. Shall I continue or should I wait for you to get the PowerPoint?
So,
Why don't you continue, William?
please continue. Meanwhile, I will try to display.
All right, thanks. Just see if I can try this one more time. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, now it is.
Anyway, so hopefully it'll work, but if not, I'll give control over to you after the slide. But what I was saying was that what we after 15 years we looked around and we actually realized that the industry is nowhere near where it needs to be. Even though, as Dr. Mathur said, these are clearly mini grids, the most cost-effective way to provide electricity to 500 million people, and are very competitive against the heavily subsidized grid as well as diesel generation. We only have 10% of the 200,000 mini grids that the World Bank says that we need by 2030. The IEA, International Energy Agency, says it's around 100,000, but whatever the number, we still need an order of magnitude greater number of mini grids being built today than we have. And so we felt that in order for the industry to achieve that level of scale where we need 10 mini grids companies that have 10 times the scale of the current market leader, we needed to develop an industry roadmap. So we published that towards the end of 2022. You can see the link here on the page. And what did that tell us? Sorry, I'm stuck again. It's frustrating. Okay, let's give this another shot. It told us that we had to focus on 4 things in order to achieve viability for the industry. Number one was that we still had the cost of electricity was still too high. The LCOE, the levelized cost of energy, was too high. That price had to come down, and we had to have the industry really focus on LCOE as the North Star of what needed to be addressed in terms of achieving industry scale. I'm on slide slide 4, I believe.
Yeah, please
Next
continue.
slide. Next slide. Right. So I was saying, there are four areas that we felt needed to be addressed, and you can read more detail in the roadmap that we published. But one is the high cost of electricity. So really bringing that LCOE down. On the other side of the cost is also the demand. As mini grid developers in this room know, you cannot create a viable business without also really working to stimulate demand within the communities where we work. And that's no trivial task, and it requires a lot of different interventions in order to create that demand. So aside from the LCOE metric that we looked at, we also chose ARPU and CUF, capacity utilization factor, as the 2 metrics that the industry really needs to focus on in terms of measuring demand and how successful we are in creating that demand. Reliability and quality of service also is really critical in terms of competition and competing with the grid and with DG. We need to be, as an industry, really focused on quality and reliability in order to distinguish ourselves against those 2 competitors. And then if you can do all 3 of those things well and create a viable business model and achieve profitability like we have, there's still the bigger task of actually scaling that business model. And that's very, very difficult to do as well. In order to really achieve the economies of scale that we need to bring down LCOE, to increase demand, et cetera, we really need to create an infrastructure, a digital infrastructure within the industry that can allow us to automate the control and management of thousands of different assets across different geographies. So those are the sort of the essential elements of the roadmap that we published in November. Next slide, please. And this is in the sort of the central graphic that comes from that roadmap that compares what other institutions like the World Bank and other industry institutions had originally targeted for 2030, the end of the Sustainable Development Goal period, and the proposed roadmap that we put forward, which we intentionally made much more ambitious as an industry. If we are going to create 10 more companies that can create 10 times the scale that we currently have, this is where we believe we need to grow, right? So as I mentioned earlier, LCOE needs to replace cost per connection, which is currently the benchmark for calculating cost, and we need to bring that LCOE down by 40% by 2030 to around or under 20 cents per kilowatt hour. We need to for both ARPU and CUF, capacity utilization factor, those need to be the metrics that we're focused on for demand, and they need to both double by 2030. And so this is, you can delve into the details more of the roadmap, but essentially we looked across the board at different metrics for business viability, and we put forward this roadmap that we think can get to scale for us and to be able to build 100,000 or 200,000 mini grids that we need by 2030. Next slide. Aside from what the roadmap does, which is really set targets for the industry itself, the developers, we also put forward a new framework, which we think is important, which is that up until today, most governments, most developers, I think, have looked at the market as a sort of monolithic market. When in fact it's actually much more nuanced, and we believe that there are at least 3 different types of markets that require different types of interventions, different types of regulatory frameworks, different types of subsidy, whatever is required to scale those markets. You look at India, where we started 15 years ago, we think that's a commercially viable market. There's no subsidy in that market. All of us in this room compete head to head with the DISCOs, with DG, and we're viable, right? So that's one category that's already been proven to be viable. The next is bridge markets, which is really where, let's look at Nigeria, for example, where we're also present. We think that in 3 to 5 years, based on our business model, that with some support through CapEx subsidy or whatever it may be, we can get from that bridge market to commercially viable market. And there are some things that are required in order to do that. And then the third market is what we call concessionary markets. And these are markets that are where population density is lower, where there's lower economic activity. And there's a very strong likelihood that grants and subsidy will be an ongoing need in those concessionary markets in perpetuity, right? And currently what governments are doing and what developers are doing largely is looking at the market as one market, when in fact it's multiple markets. And even at the country level, you have all 3 of these different kinds of markets. And there are implications for, if you agree with this framework, there are implications for what the regulatory framework should be, what the incentive structure should be, and what the business model should be. So that's also a key element of the roadmap. Next slide. And just all of that said, we always want to keep first and foremost the primary goal, which is to create socioeconomic impact for the people and the businesses that we serve. These are just some of the photos from the communities that we work with, from some of our employees in 2022. And I just want to end on that note, because I don't want to lose the human element here of the impact that we're actually making. And if we can agree on a roadmap and all line up behind that roadmap, the impact that we can make both on social welfare and economic well-being can be much, much greater. So with that, that's my last slide. I want to thank everybody and look forward to the conversation. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. William, for sharing your thoughts and sharing the thoughts in terms of making the business model sustainable, and the market segmentation that you have given is very informative. Now, proceeding further, I request now Mr. Sugata Mukherjee to give his presentation. Just a moment, I'm sharing the screen.
Very good afternoon, Mathur sir, and all dignitaries in this dais, as well as people who are joining us online. And first of all, I want to thank ISA and for giving us this opportunity for sharing our experience on renewable microgrid impact that has happened in Tata Power initiatives. Tata Power has started this journey not long ago, and in fact, it was really pleasure for us to hear the experience of Mr. William Brent on the 15 years or experience in the mini grid business that Ask Power has already achieved, and they are learning is also an inspiration for us to what we can do for the mini grid business. And we'll share just briefly about our uh, initiatives on this area and in this presentation. Next slide. So main objective of Tata Power has more than 100 years old organization and the largest integrated utility, private utility is having the generation, transmission, distribution as well as renewable. So what we have learned from our other partners in and from the other stakeholders discussion that energy poverty and economic poverty are very much related. And we are attempting to take the energy poverty and economic poverty by providing access to reliable green electricity at an affordable cost. And that will also have a far-reaching impact on pollution and carbon neutrality and income generating opportunities also to create a self-sustaining microgrid business model, which we feel that in India, if we initiate this can be replicated all across. And there we are also want to share our experience with ISA and other member countries for that. Next slide. These are the major key drivers of mini grids. So energy access is has been already told about. The energy access is one of the key issues in many countries across the world. Energy security is also one more issue, that the environmental and energy benefits, energy efficiency benefits, which can is an important area for the mini grid solution. Economic benefits as well as clean energy integration are the other key drivers, and the value proposition that is available for the mini grid customers are primarily the power reliability, the supply quality, and the affordable package that can be provided. Along with that, the value-added services, which is also very critical, because as on date, the value-added services are not much focused upon while we talk about the electricity distribution business or the in electricity, the value-added services are for having the sustainability of that. Next slide. So TP Renewable Microgrid Limited is a 100% subsidiary of Tata Power, which was formed in 4th November 2019. Our objective is to electrify 10,000 villages in using solar mini grids and to provide affordable and reliable quality 24/7 service to approximately 25 plus million customers. The major focus is on the 4th point, that is to drive the economic growth via small enterprises and agriculture. Because what we feel that the higher cost of the renewable energy has to be compensated with a higher economic growth in the rural area. And we also intend to promote the affordable energy efficient appliances through innovative new technologies. The cost has to be reduced. And we are working with relevant central and state government bodies to advance thoughtful policy reforms so that the off-grid as well as the on-grid electricity distribution systems are considered in sync. Next slide, please. This is one of the picture of the solar-based off-grid generating mini grid in Tata Power Renewable Mini Grid initiatives in one of the villages in UP. And can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So these are the major component of the mini grid. The solar panels, as on date, we are having approximately 30 kilowatt of solar panel in each of our mini grids. A distribution network, overhead distribution network of about 2 to 2.5 kilometer of length. We also have inverter and the battery system so that in the evening also we can provide reliable electricity to our customers. To compensate in case of the non-solar generation days, we have as a backup initially kept DG set. Now we are replacing all the DG sets with the biomethane generator. I will cover more about that. And mostly what we target is that the rural area where the growth potential, economic growth potential is existing, there is a presence of anchor load for the mini grid, so that the micro enterprises are there, the village market is there, so that growth can be possible there. And also where the grid supply is existing but not so reliable. So here the energy access is theoretically energy access is there, but practically the people are still in the need of the reliable electricity, which can be provided by the mini grid. Next slide. So this is what our understanding is about the mini grid market in India and abroad. And till date, approximately 21.4 thousand mini grids are installed. And till 2030, 29.3 thousand mini grids are planned to be added. And as you can see that in the planned capacity addition in South Asia, India is one of the topmost country which has a planned mini grid capacity addition of 18.9 K. Why so? In fact, when we have seen the SMAP studies also, but the energy sector management assistance program study report, it is clearly saying that there is a huge potential for mini grid across the globe, and more than 450 millions of people can be benefited from the if we implement the mini grid as per our plan. Next slide. In India, the macro environment, as you can see, that the energy reliability is the major driver for the mini grid, because in the rural area, the average daily supply hours is still very, very low. From the graphs, as you can see, that there are many states where the average supply hours is still hovering between 16 to 18 hours, where the requirement of the mini grid is predominant, and people are actually thriving for the reliable energy in the rural India, where the next, I think, next 2 decades, the major growth of our country's economy will be from the rural economy, and there the need for the reliable energy is much, much more than what we can even envisage today. Next slide, please. So again, this is the macro environment, and as Mr. William has been mentioning, that LCOE is a major important factor for the mini grid operation. We can see that as per the Bloomberg report on the mini grid market, the cost of electricity in mini grid is lower compared to the other countries, and there to meet the off-grid power demand, the mini grid is a very good solution. And this is also reflected by the consumer behavior when in the mini grids that are operating today. More than 500 mini grids are commercially operating in the country, and that the access to the quality energy, for that there are many customers in Bihar and UP who are using the mini grid supply of BHAS, OMC or Tata Power. Next slide, please. This is just an understanding of the mini grid potential in different villages. What Tata Power, in our initial study, we observed that approximately 50,000 potential villages are existing for mini grid supply in only the 8 different states which are mentioned here. Next. On this study, we have started our mini grid journey in 2 states, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and today we are operating in 10 districts in these 2 states. And in these 10 districts, more than 190 mini grids have been already installed, and we are serving 19,000 rural customers in these villages. Next. When we consider the impact of this Tata Power mini grid initiatives, the major impact is not only in the overall number of customers of 19,000 and the reduction in carbon emission of 8,000, more than 8,000 tons of CO2 per year, and reduction in diesel consumption of 30 lakhs of liters is one of the key impact that we have seen already through our mini grid initiative has started. When you see the impact on the irrigation, there are 66 irrigation pumps which are powered through our Tata Power mini grid supply, and more than 200 farmers are benefited from this irrigation supply, because one irrigation pump is not only catering one customer, but they are also creating water village level entrepreneur who are supplying water from the mini grid operated pump to the other nearby farmers as well. We have also been able to create more than 50 village level entrepreneurs who have started their business in mini grid initiatives only. Next slide, please. We'll cover more on that. So when we have seen this impact, one of the reason for the efficiency of the mini grid operation is in terms of the technology innovation. So these are the areas of main technology innovation which we are focused upon. Remote monitoring and control of the mini grid is one area, and the low cost prepaid smart meter, which has the option for load controlling, because in the mini grid we have a limitation of the generation. So unlike the grid, we have to limit the load of the customers according to their need, and this is done through this prepaid smart group meters, which is Tata Power's initiatives in the mini grid. Apart from that, we have also the inverters which are capable for sustaining the high inrush current of the motive loads, which has been a challenge earlier for any off-grid inverters, that the inrush current of the motors are causing the tripping of the inverter, which has been addressed through the new inverter. And we also have the digital elevation model, which enables us to identify the proper location for the mini grid, which will not be the flat prone, and we can have a suitable satellite imaging to best market selection also for the mini grid. Next slide. So one of the another new technology which we are now focusing upon is the flow battery, the vanadium redox based flow battery, which we have started piloting in our site, and this is going to definitely make a huge impact on the mini grid business if it is successful, because the overall LCOE for this battery will be much lower, and this efficiency of the battery will enable the mini grid operator to provide the evening supply to the rural customers in a much better way. Next slide. The second initiatives in technology terms is the biomethane. So we are working with one partner who is providing the biomethane generation from two major fuels. One, the sugar placement or the animal waste. Through that, in a hub and spoke model, the biomethane is generated, and from there it is then brought to the different mini grid in a nearby vicinity. About 10 to 15 mini grids are supplied with the biomethane, and the biomethane is stored there. So this is also going to help the mini grid operators for having the to help the cater the variable demand, because the customer's demand will vary from time to time, from season to season, as well as different time of the day also the customer's demand can vary. So the biomethane generation is much cheaper than the other form of generation of diesel generation or any other gas generation. It is much cheaper than. Next slide. So in terms of empowering the farmers, as I mentioned that we have farmers migrated from fully diesel operated to mini grid supply, and they are having a huge annual saving for the same. Similarly, there are medium and small scale enterprises, rural enterprises, who are using the reliable supply. We have run a program where more than 1,800 women entrepreneurs in the rural area are provided the mini grid supply, and they are running their business. Last but not the least, there are more than 90 micro enterprises who were earlier running their business on complete diesel generator, and now they have switched over to the mini grid supply. And not only the environmental saving of fossil fuel, but also the micro enterprises are saving almost 30 to 35% of their operating expenses towards diesel. Next. So as I have mentioned earlier, that the electricity supply that we provide to the farmers, they use the water pipe to serve the nearby farmers as well, and that way we have been able to create the water village level entrepreneurs who are using water also as a part of their business, and additional income is they are having approximately 15,000 rupees of additional income per month for this. Carry on. In line with the Government of India's initiatives for Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India, we are focusing upon creating the new village level entrepreneur, and more than 50 such VLEs has been created. Next. This is the women empowerment in some of the example of the women entrepreneurs who are getting the microgrid supply. Next. Next. So, yeah. So now that all the Tata Power mini grids are having this focus that the local employability and the engagement, not only in terms of the mini grid operation, but mini grid construction, we always try to create new jobs for the village level populations, and all our mini grids are operated by them. Next. Tata Power is also collaborating with many stakeholders. One of the major stakeholders right now is SIDBI, the Small Industry and Development Bank of India, that they have, we have tied up with them. We have signed the MOU to set up 1,000 green energy enterprises who will be getting the electricity supply from the green energy, that is the solar mini grid. And SIDBI will support these entrepreneurs through either small amount of funding or grant, or the concessional loan for them. Next. Some example where the Tata Power mini grid has been able to create happiness among the village population who were earlier not being able to get the government electricity connection through the mini grid connection with the smallest package now what they can afford. And the smallest package is 100 rupees per month for any village level person also. That amount is available and they can get the electricity from the mini grid, which will serve their basic need. Next. This is one of our initiatives with Uttar Pradesh state government. UP's first smart green digital village as in the Rewana village in Lakhimpur district has been set up, and here the different scheme of the government to turn the village into the digital has also been supported by Tata Power green initiatives of the microgrid supply. Next. Some of our public communications, and I think we can carry on. Next. So yeah, here the Tata Power microgrid has also partnered with Usha previous time. With Usha sewing machine, they have an initiatives to train the village women for sewing, and also to help them to generate income from sewing, electricity sewing. So we have set up two such training center come employment generation center in association with Usha for which are powered through the microgrid supply, and these village women are very much self-reliant now, so that they can have their own income, and they have now trained in the sewing as well. Next. Just like ISA, we also believe that the ecosystem can be built only through collaborations. So there are technology collaborations. We have, as you can see in this slide, we have a technology collaborations with different entities, MIT, General Electric, ITT, Shell. We have a startup ecosystem also, like I mentioned about our two major technology initiatives of biomethane and vanadium flow battery. They are in association with Grassroot Energy, which is a startup, and Electric, which is another startup for the flow battery. We are so this is an impact on the social and environmental impact of 10,000 mini grids which are envisaged, and 1 million tons of CO2 emission can be envisaged through that. But more importantly, we can create about 25,000 new entrepreneurs in the agri-business and 15,000 new entrepreneurs in water and irrigation. Next. Some of the customers' input, I think I'll skip that part. Yeah. Next. So this is in line with our Tata Group founder's dream, and which he has clearly elaborated that the community is not just another stakeholder, but the very purpose of the existence. We still believe that, and that's the reason we are focusing upon providing the clean green energy to the rural community, so that the rural economy can grow along with the reliable electricity. Thank you. Thank you, Aisavan.
Well, thank you, sir, for sharing such a detailed presentation and explaining about the technical, commercial, as well as the impact it creates across the globe, as well as with the India perspective. Now, I request Mr. Srinivasan, Ganpati Srinivasan ji, Director OMC, to give his presentation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Pranshu. Thank you for this. Let me start. Share the screen. Can you just okay? Right. I hope everybody could see the presentation now.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay. Thank you. Just a quick introduction. My name is Ganpati Srinivasan. I head the international business for OMC Power, as well as the SCM department as well. Okay, let me start with a little bit about the a friend from Tata Power excellently I think gave a detailed presentation. Let's start about we are in a similar space. We are rural. Let me start with the presentation. What we are trying to solve here is basically three fundamental issues of the of the market is what we are trying to solve. One is on the economic front. We would like to address the economic issues. The second is the major issue which is going on throughout the world, which is the environment. That is what we address, the second issue. The third is the social impact, which is also equally important in today's world. What we are trying to solve here is, the absence of reliable electricity in the rural areas of India as well as outside India is creating enormous, impact on the lives of the people. What we are trying to do here is address these three fundamental pillars of the issues or challenges by our solution. Okay. On the economic front, we all know that the alternate fuel increases cost of doing business. Important for running the productivity of agriculture. So one of the things which we see here, the impact which the reliable electricity can bring to the rural community is enormous in terms of economic this thing. And also, if you don't have a reliable power, what it does is it holds back the progress in rural areas, which is we would say electricity is an enabler in for rural health, education, and also empowerment of the local communities. As far as the environment is concerned, today, most of the rural areas have, telecom has reached, rural areas where electricity has not reached reliably. And therefore, it creates a lot of, CO2 emissions, especially using the diesel, generators by players like telecom, as well as, players who are already, servicing these people by using other means in terms of private DG sets. What we are trying to address is bring a renewable energy, bring a power which creates the environmental impact to the rural communities. Third one, we are also talking about the social. Lack of electricity also creates deprives the people in terms of study, in terms of work, and in terms of what they can do productively in terms of their livelihood. And we are addressing the third, challenge, which is also social challenge. 50% of the, households are unable to use the appliances when it is needed most. Okay, that's because of unreliable, power situation in the rural areas. Just a quick one about OMC Power. Okay, we are a rural utility company with, more than 300 power plants already operational, and we'll be soon become 1,000 plant company. We are those are under execution. We mitigate more than 7,500 tons of CO2, and we have 26 megawatt of capacity in terms of our generation as well as storage, and around about 500 kilometers of mini grid rollout which has already been done. And we are primarily operating in UP and some parts of Bihar as well in India. In terms of solution, what we address is basically we address all facets of the communities. In terms of today, what we have from a single plant, we service as this is a symbolic pictorial diagram of a real plant which service today the shops, the rural communities. That's what we do. It is also a self-sustained rural development model. I say this because as we create all the three social, economic, and climate controls, And more importantly, we'll come back to how we have done it in terms of our modeling, in terms of inclusive of development. We follow a ABC model, which means we feel anchor, the A is basically an anchor telecom towers. We have an anchor client, which is in this case is a telecom tower, and B is, business, small and medium sized, enterprises in terms of business. C is the communities or households, you can say, which are around those plants, which are also being serviced. So we service all the three segments, which are equally important for this or business case to work in rural areas. We little bit also have variants to this model, which we call it as we call it as we service in some of the plants, we service only A, which is just the anchor clients like a telecom. In some plants we only have a B and C, which is business and communities, not have any anchor client. And some of the plants also service ABC, which means anchor client as well as the communities as well as the business. So we have this all the three variants depending upon the villages and the business requirement. We could do any of these models or combination of these models. We also a little bit also let's talk about a little bit about EABC, which is also enhanced ABC. We also go beyond the ABC model to enhance by using different models. We'll come back a little bit in terms of what we could do in that sense. Our differentiator in terms of business process, we have done a business process automation. I'll not go very deep into this particular thing, but just to explain, all our processes are completely automated. We also have an inclusive business model. We have a passionate team of people who are serving in the rural communities today. More than 200, 300 employment opportunities we have created in the village. We have a smart grid, which means this all this our grids are all smart grid, which means we could monitor, we change parameters, everything is done remotely, can be done. We also have a recognized infrastructure, which means in this cases we go with something which is proven. We don't go with because we give a very high reliability in terms of infrastructure. Today we are servicing our clients with more than 99% of 99.99% of availability. So that has been our track record, and we are also mostly we are customer centric, which means we take our customer feedback and requirements very seriously, and we work on that. And as we speak, we are working more and more into this, and a lot of things are being changed because of the customer requirement coming in. So one of the things which is important for this particular thing is to make, how do you make this business model sustainable? Yes, to create mini grids is one, without any subsidies or without any government interventions, right? In terms of so one is the financial sustainability. We are talking about long-term PPAs with the anchor clients. We're also talking about stable cash flows. The second part, I think some part of it was touched by our friend actually, which is also affordable packages. We are talking about the rural communities which are the poorest of poor today are being addressed. I would say where the discoms have failed in giving them this affordable tariff and reliable electricity. I think mini grids like us and others in the field are also addressing this. The affordable tariffs are in the range of hundreds, 125 rupees starting and going up as per the requirement. And 98% of these are all prepaid model. And it has to be a low cost model. At the end of the day, the outsource partners and cash management have to make it a low cost model. Good governance is also equally important to make it sustainable in the long run. And the policy actually is a very critical aspect of this business, because whatever we do today are under the framework of the mini grid. And I think the policy evolution is equally important to support mini grids. So this is going to be the future, which is a supplementary to the grid actually today. That's how we are making it 24/7. I think the dream of our Honorable Prime Minister, we are making it happen by working in tandem with the grid. And of course, the last but not the least is the scalable model. Actually, with anchor modeling, what we have seen is the model has to scale up for the requirements. Okay, what we start with today with 30 kilowatt going up to 100 kilowatt, we have seen the model has to scale up for the rural areas as the demand keep increasing. Some impacts what we have created is on the environment. We have created more than this is powering communities with 100% green power, reduce diesel. I am not saying elimination here because right now we are working on that model as well. But most of our plants today are operating with solar only, with very little diesel intervention except for where it is absolutely needed. Okay, livelihood. We talk about the job creations, which are people at the grassroots level. We train the people from. We take the people from the local communities, train them and put them to employment, and therefore we create a lot of jobs, and both directly and indirectly through our partners as well. Okay, and third, the economic. One of the things which you have seen also, these kind of models really create economic viability for small and medium enterprises. We have seen their revenue increases because of reliable power and available at a affordable sachet model, which really increases their the revenue as well as their potential to grow. Okay, the last but not the least model is investment with the local local businesses. Reliable power actually has already resulted in 7% increase in the businesses, and therefore finally when it comes to economic thing, I think we are a little bit enabler in this space where I think the future lies in partnering and developing this economic model more and more toward productive use. Last but not the least, education. We also serve. We also give electricity to the colleges, and and we are also tying up with the advanced technical skill importing centers. In future, more and more of that particular thing will be released, and which will also create impact both in terms of education as well as employment or self-employment, you can say. And children can study. This is a very most of the time when electricity is not there, people are not able to study in rural areas. We give them power when it's most needed, especially in the evening hours. Where they do a lot of education as well as cooking things happen. So that is where I think we serve them when it is needed most. A little bit we touched upon earlier. The models are actually, I think some of my friends in the industry also touched upon it. I think it's important when you look at rural utility model to have a clean drinking water today. While cities are being served by different players and different models, I think rural still is far from making this particular dream happen, especially on the drinking water side. Okay, that is where we are actually getting into, where we provide clean drinking water at a very affordable prices at the rural communities. Agriculture upliftment is also equally important because they are mainly dependent on agro small scale agro models, and therefore to give them power, reliable power, especially when it is needed, and on a model which is sustainable and affordable is equally important. C&I will say commercial and industrial establishments are mostly small and medium enterprises, which are which could be addressed based on their need and on demand. I would say on demand services. Fourth, EV is really catching up in India, and while the cities are going up very fast in the EV model, I think rural will also follow a similar pattern. And therefore, it is important to have addressed this particular electric vehicle needs of the people, and a model which is sustainable. I would say when I say sustainable, the model could be it could be rental model, it could be charge and use per pay model, it could be a collaboration with the OEMs for making this affordable. As I see three stakeholders, especially the manufacturer, the consumer, or the local business owner, and three player like us who could make it make it viable, and both in terms of capex as well as OPEX reduction. in short, actually, to talk about what we have today is 100,000. We are impacting more than 100,000. 270 to 300. We have reached actually 300 plants, and 26 megawatt hour, 500 kilometers of distribution and under execution. And this is what we are looking at both in terms of partnership with ISA. We are working on a long-term investment model for economic development both in India as well as outside India. This is what we would like to achieve. To make it happen, what we require is a strong governance structure, and regulatory framework is very, very important wherever we go, whether it's India or outside India. That is where we are taking I think a place like us with ISA can really make it work from the policy and framework perspective, and also long-term backup and financial viability is equally important for private investments, and tariffing structure and subsidy model, because especially when we are talk about outside India, the one of the important thing is the tariff structure should be such that it is sustainable for private players. Okay, when it is capped, or when it is curtailed, then it has to come with a subsidy model so that the business is self-sustaining in the long run. And we are also looking at a single window clearance in terms of regulatory framework. It is important to have one agency which can do all these things to make the dream is to make the world we elevate the electricity deficit. We should actually many countries have got the target to make it 100% electrified. But to achieve it, I think it is a lot of work needs to be done, and especially in these areas. And in terms of business model identification of villages, we are also talking about bankable DPRs, pilot to large scale deployment within the framework, and also partnership both locally and international. So with that, I'll come to the conclusion of this presentation. If there are any.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for sharing the presentation. And you rightly said that a sustainable business model as well as a proper regulatory and policy framework is very much required for establishing and scaling solar mini grid across the region. Thank you very much. Now we proceed further for the panel discussion, and we welcome OMC Power co-founder as well as CEO, Mr. Rohit Chandra. And along with that, we have Mr. Manoj, CEO from Tata Power. Along with that, we have Mr. Suhash from RE Plus, who is pioneer and who has designed the Modera solar mini grid. And I request Mr. Ramesh Kumar, Chief of Unit, International Solar Alliance, to take it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudhanshu, for introducing the panel. Before I inviting the panel members, I would like to invite or welcome all the our national focal points joined from various countries, because the main idea of or objective of ISA is to help the member countries to scale up solar applications. So what we are doing is it basically for them to see that how the sustainable business models in solar mini grids can help them in scale up. So ultimately we are there to channelize these things to the countries. So since this is in a hybrid mode, I'm happy that many of the countries have joined. So we have 113 countries ISA, and almost 47 countries are either there is a LDC countries or small island developing states. All of them requiring a lot of hand-holding and our support so that this can be scaled up. So once again, from my side, I would welcome once again Mr. Rohit Chandra, Mr. William Brand, Mr. Manoj Gupta, Mr. Suhas. One of our panelists could not join, Mr. Sridhar Rao from Sanmoksha. due to some personal problem in the last minute, so he couldn't join it. Before coming to the panel again, my appreciation to the presentations made earlier here. So that gives a the picture of the various business model from Tata, Husk, and OMC. Before putting my question to the panel, two things I would like to say that when ISA was carrying out a very close analysis, because India is doing a G20 presidency this year, and one of the important themes which the presidency of India has put forward is the universal energy access. So that shows the importance at the level of the Indian Prime Minister or the government of India. So this discussion today is kind of a preliminary or first level of discussions with all the important stakeholders or the mini grid developers. Incidentally, I think you three are the most kind of, I would say, the top rated, even acknowledged by the World Bank and all, to do the mini grids development. So it's very important for you to take it forward to the other countries. So with the current progress, what we are seeing, if we see the universal energy access, the target is by 2030. Somewhere we have reached 91% globally, the energy, I would say electricity access, energy access is a bigger word. But in electricity access, we have reached about 91%. And they say if we go in the current rate, we will only reach 92% by 2030. So the 8% of the people still may get left out, which will be in the range of 630 to 650 million people who will be left out if we are not changing or we are not accelerating the process. So this is the baseline. And secondly, so what we thought that to if we wanted the critical issues of mini grids is many of the time it's clear to all of us. It is a question of whether it is how much commercially viable without any support. So even though people are demonstrating it, I think still a unique model or a model which doesn't require any grant support may not be possible. But we reduce the requirement of the grant and thereby having a better business model. I think that will be key, number one. Secondly, almost 15 to 20 countries in the top, if we take the lack of access, the countries in Africa, almost in the range of 15 countries will constitute about, I think almost 75% where the access is not there. So if we have this business model done in some of the countries, how can we take this business model to those countries is one important issue which we need to talk about it. And so as we proceed, we are also planning to have a meeting of the African ministers sometime in July during one of this working group session, energy transition working group under G20. We will have a meeting with the ministers from Africa and G20 ministers, because G20 is generally in a much better shape. They are more of a developed class of countries. So how do we, with the support of all, how we can help these countries to scale up? So that will be an idea which we will like to fix it by the time. So as a steps first, this is the first meeting which we'll be carrying out. So with that, what I'm looking for is the inputs from all of you, because ISA's intervention today, what we can understand, one is if we wanted to have a sustainable business model in this country, one of the important bottlenecks or requirement may be the policy and regulatory support from the respective government. This is the first thing, probably the most important part which will come up. Secondly, what we understand is to have a confidence of the investors or investing. There has to be some backup mechanisms, financial products or something, which needs to give a a kind of confidence to encourage the investment. That is second part which we thought. Third part, of course, we are also seeing there will be capacity building. So this is one area, the capacity building or the maybe development of people, local involvement, and how they can be part of this development. So these 2-3 areas we have identified. I would like to have the inputs from you, from each one of you. To start with, I'll start with Mr. Hiran, because we had the presentation from the all other important companies here, but I would request Mr. Hiran, because Modera is one of the very important showcasing project, which in fact the G20 people or the government of India also want to see, take those people, this Modera. So that experience will be very, very useful for the countries. And so I will first request you to, Mr. Suhas, sorry. So to talk about the RE plus experience for Modera development. Over to you. Yeah.
First of all, thanks ISA for organizing this event and inviting RE Plus for this panel discussion. See, I have seen 3 presentations and everyone was talking about financial feasibility of microgrid. And I appreciate the presentation by Tata where they have actually hit the nail, because you can, technologically it is possible to form a microgrid. Now you have an asset. Now, unless you utilize that asset for some commercial benefit or some revenue, the microgrid is not going to become financially feasible. And I think they have done right thing by promoting or creating rural entrepreneurs who are able to earn revenue, and then they are able to repay the energy rate. And maybe generally the way it happens in Indian grid, where commercial and industrial consumers pay higher tariff and residentials are like paid at subsidized rate. So even in such microgrids, if you can, in addition to this investment, if you can invest in socio-economical development of the communities, and then I think these microgrids can become commercially viable. Now coming back to Modera, this was an unique experience for me as a designer and even as a project developer for Mahindra Trust, and RE Plus was system integrator in this project. So this project was basically, as usual, all microgrids. This was a funded project grant, bigger grant given by Government of India and even to Government of Gujarat. So the unique about this project is this village, the Modera village is the location is Sun God temple is there. And it's a very ancient temple, around 1,000 years old temple, where the sun is shaped as a deity. So this was the concept put forward by our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, where the concept was, why not the village where the sun is being worshipped, run on 24/7 on solar energy, and from where it started, and then it reality in terms of 6 megawatt of solar plant and energy backup, which can run this village 24/7 on sun power. So, if I look all the microgrid people who have earlier spoken about, they have talked of microgrids of few hundreds of kilowatt of rating. But with the advancement in the technology and energy management softwares, now today we are in position to even build grids which are isolated from main grid, but they can run into some megawatts of scales. And I think with this economies of scale, we will be able to bring down the per unit cost of energy for this rural consumer. So maybe instead of going for a single village as a mini or microgrid, maybe we can club a cluster of villages and then have a set up a bigger plant. And with this economies of scale, we will be able to achieve the tariff, which can make these projects sustainable and run on their own.
Many thanks, Mr. Suhas, for talking about Modera and the important factor. How do we stimulate the productive activities there, which will be key for that. Many thanks for that. So now let me come to Mr. Rohit Chandra. It's wonderful to say, and it has been, you have proved that without any financial support, it is possible to scale up this in India. My question would be to you is, as I was just mentioning, there are three buckets which we are looking at. One, in terms of policy and regulatory support, what are the key things which we'll be looking at from the countries if we wanted to replicate these things in these countries? Number one. Secondly, if ISA also is in the process of creating a facility where which will give a kind of backup support, what would be your input on that? What is your kind of thought process in that? And third, of course, how do we also look at the capacity building in these countries where this ecosystem is created so that such models can be replicated? Yeah. Over to Mr. Rohit Chandra.
Thank you, sir. And pleasure attending the session today. Very inspiring to see presentations from Hus Power and Tata Power, whom we greatly admire, and they're doing some great work in this space. Now, you touched upon India, so let me say that OMC is kind of what we call a distributed energy platform. So we are slightly more diversified as compared to just being a mini grid player. And the reason for that is that we believe that if we have to serve mini grids well, we need a certain amount of serious commercial load on our plants, and a load which is in the eyes of investors and lenders more bankable. And that's where we started off with an anchor load concept, whereby we have telecommunication towers as anchor loads across our plants. This is important because it's a win-win situation for telecommunication towers and tower companies, and for companies like ours, because just to give reference to everybody, not just in India but also in Africa. In India, telecom is one of the largest consumer of diesel. They consume more than 2 billion liters of diesel every year. And this is the current status. And if you look at their average diesel run across telecommunication towers in rural India, it's today more than 12 hours. So they have to depend more than 12 hours on diesel for providing a 100% service level to their mobile customers. So this is the kind of job that we are doing. So we are trying to find a win-win solution whereby we can provide them green power, replace diesel completely from the side, and they can utilize the DISCOM energy as long as it is available. And then for the remaining hours, which vary between 12 to 24, depending upon the site, they are completely dependent on OMC. So that's the model. We have long-term PPAs with them. Additionally, in India, I think a very important point is the population density. So wherever we put a plant, typically we have a large population within a radius of, say, 5 kilometers of the plant. We could see 15 to 20,000 people live around the plant. So it becomes easier to kind of set up a distribution network, have large number of customers. So on average, we would have anywhere between 300 to 500 off-takers at each of our mini grid plants. And in summary, in India, we have put in a generation capacity already of 39 megawatt hours. And we have a storage capacity of 33 megawatt hours and a mini grid distribution of about 500 kilometers. With 350 plants up and running currently in the states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Now, to get to other question, and of course, there are three fundamental pillars here to make this model successful. One is to have a sustainable business model. So a business model, I think our colleague from Hus spoke about profitability, and I think that's very key, because if at the corporate level, you're not profitable, if at the unit level, you're not profitable, then there is no point scaling a business which is not healthy. So at each unit level, we must show a good amount of profitability, which means that at corporate level, we can demonstrate profitability for equity partners and lenders to have appetite to come and invest in this business. So the first thing is really a sustainable business model which can be scaled. The second thing is stable policy and regulatory environment, which India does provide to mini grid operators. And in fact, we can go set up mini grids, we can run them. And I think in any country in Africa, if we need to enter and provide, stable operations and a scaled up operation, we'll need to see, ICE support and the country support to actually work around a framework which can give reasonable confidence to investors that whatever mini grids are going to be set up for a sustained period of time. Now, when you look at business cases, if you want to offer reliable tariffs to consumers, which is the end goal, then you need to set up mini grids with the mindset that this is some kind of a permanent establishment. This is going to run for 10, 15, 20 years. So there should be stability in terms of running these grids for 10, 15, 20 years. And that kind of a policy framework is required. Maybe identification of certain areas in a country which will never be serviced by the traditional grid, so that you could go set up larger mini grids and they're kind of there to stay, and they actually become the grid. They actually become the grid. And like one of our colleagues said, that if the scale of the mini grid is good, you could get lower LCOEs and offer competitive tariffs if the project duration is large. So suppose we need to kind of recover our cost of capital and returns over 25 years, we could offer much more aggressive tariffs on day one, right? So I think the second part then to conclude is really a policy framework which allows the infrastructure to be set up for a sustained period of time. And the longer the time duration allowed by the policy framework, the better it will be in terms of being competitive in tariffs from day one. The third thing is going to be, of course, availability of capital and any viability gap funding or funding in terms of the structure of the funding. Even if there's no viability gap funding, because I believe and OMC believes that it's very difficult to sustain and scale models which require viability gap funding. So I would say that the structure of the funding and it should be such that it allows the mini grid operator to set up his shop, garner scale, and then, for instance, if it's a lending arrangements, then they could be ballooned in a manner. They should be long-term, keeping the project life cycle in due consideration and ballooned in nature, so that there is no initial pressure for the mini grid operator to start repayments until his scale is built up. So it allows him, 3 to 5 years to build scale when repayments start. A certain amount of moratoriums, balloon structures, and certain amount of financial support and maybe guarantees coming from certain institutions, including ISA or including partners of ISA. Like we have examples of GAP and many other partnerships that ISA has entered into who have precisely similar mandates. So I guess if this exercise could be done with companies who have proven track record, like Huspower, Tata Power, such a structure is evolved where different regions could be allocated to different companies, or different countries could be allocated to different companies, and certain amount of structures could be set up around policy, around the operating framework and business models. Then I think this can really be achieved.
Many thanks, Mr. Rohit Chandra. I think your inputs are very valuable for ISA to take it forward. We take note of that, and we'll in fact reach out further on that, so that we are able to create that ecosystem or facilitate to create that ecosystem. Many thanks for the inputs. Now I come to Mr. William Brandt. Many thanks for your presentation, and in fact you have told a very, very important point I captured is there are multiple business models. At least you talked about 10 business models. We should look at it and scale it up. Maybe that's one of the important ways to address the universal and energy access. Many thanks for that input. So my question would be to you, how because having worked many countries in Africa, because Africa is almost 75% where the access is not there, and you have been working there. So what are I would look for the important aspects of the policy and regulatory framework, including the how do we build up that capacity of the policymakers so that they are able to take right policies to promote such sustainable model. Over to you, Mr. Williamson.
Yeah, thank you so much. As you said, actually, we just a small correction. We at this point we're just identifying 3 potential different types of markets, right? That require different types of business models. So it may be 10, but we've just sort of limited it to 3 for the time being. I'm sure we could drill down and come up with other more specific examples as well. But in terms of policy and regulatory framework, so we entered Africa about 6 years ago, first in Tanzania, and then in Nigeria in 2020. Maybe I'll start by saying this is not just an issue of policy and regulation, it's also a political issue. We've actually exited Tanzania because the environment, the sort of macro environment in that country was based on our feedback from investors, were not conducive to business operations. So that's an example of a situation where it wasn't policy and regulatory issues; it was a political issue, right? The energy industry was politicized, and therefore we weren't able to run our business as determined by the regulatory framework that had originally attracted us to enter the market, right? So even if you have the regulatory framework, you have the policy framework, the rug can get pulled out from underneath you if it becomes a politicized issue. So that's something that also needs to be addressed, I think. In terms of policy and regulatory framework, I mean, interestingly, Nigeria, I would say, has the most advanced regulatory framework of any country in Africa. It was based on I believe, the India regulatory framework that was created in UP. That was sort of the basis of the Nigeria regulation, and that's been extremely helpful in terms of drawing in private sector investment, private sector developers. I think they offer a model for other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. They've not only looked at it from a standalone mini grid perspective that are off grid, but they're also working very hard to look at how to encourage private sector developers to do integrated mini grids, so grid connected mini grids. And we're in the process of not only building off grid mini grids in Nigeria, but also grid interconnected mini grids. I think there's actually something that India could take back from that and maybe work to apply in India as well. So to create more of an integrated system in India. Currently, we're parallel to the DISCOMs, but is there an opportunity for more integration there? I think so. So, I think that, there's still many missing pieces that are going to need to be there in Africa. I would cite a couple. One is, import policy and the frameworks for component importation. That's still quite expensive in many countries. Also, incentivizing the creation of a domestic supply chain is also really going to be important. Right now, we're already seeing challenges in terms of sourcing appliances for either commercial use or household use that are affordable and durable and rugged enough to work in those environments. So I think there's some energy related regulatory and policy elements that need to be considered as well. On the finance side, clearly there's more need for local currency finance. There need to be some sort of guarantees and interest buy down mechanisms that can allow for local financial institutions to come into the market more aggressively, which they're currently not. So I'd say that's also an important piece. And then in terms of capacity, I mean, I think what ISA is already doing is extremely helpful. But I think that we do face a lot of inertia within the existing energy ecosystem in all markets, right? Whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Africa, and you've got a lot of legacy mindset that needs to shift. And working with companies like Husk, OMC, and Tata, I think we can provide perspectives to governments and regulators on why this is actually a win-win for them in terms of fiscal policy and reducing their exposure to diesel imports or to grid extension. You have private capital willing to come into the market to pick up some of that slack, but many of them are not open to that conversation because they're still sort of sitting in that legacy mindset. So I think that what ISA can do is bring the two parties together in a meaningful way and have more of these exchanges where we can actually talk about what the benefit is to their constituents, but also to them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, William. So giving all those critical inputs and getting ISA to maybe to play a critical role in capacitating to on the policy side, as well as also you talked about financial side. And third important part also is the diversification of maybe the supply chain, maybe the manufacturing and supply chain that are play an important role to reduce the price and also the supply disruptions. I think we take your point, and these are all very critical us, and we'll need to win dialogue with you to on that. So with that, there are certain interruptions happening here because that, and now let me come finally to Mr. Manoj Gupta, CEO of Tata Power. First of all, there was a very detailed presentation. One important point which I could universal energy. Yeah. Am I audible? There are some interruptions. Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, sure. Let me. So, my question to Mr. Manoj Gupta is: can we also look at the one other important issue, whether this is the clean fuel for cooking, which is one lacks in the whole thing? Can we have integrated such mini grids to cover that also? So, what is your thought on that? Yeah.
Thank you, ISA, for providing this opportunity to us. And the inputs provided by Rohit, William, Suhash is really good. They talk from a huge experience in this particular field. While we into the microgrid business for last 3 years, we have a slight different type of experience, and the questions which I'm going to say is from those experiences. From a policy perspective, just wanted to share that in India, this industry, microgrid, mini grid, are to be considered that as a separate industry, and it is not a competing industry with the national grid. It is a complementary industry which will help customers to get a reliable power supply. Because the reliable power supply is one of the important ingredients for the economic growth. And from here, the policy framework which help us, not the regulations per se, but the enablement factors to be designed. Policy means you sort of put a lot of burdens, barriers into it. But here what we're looking is enablement factors for the developers to be in place. For example, today we are developing a microgrid, mini grid in various rural places, and at a later point of time, a reliable power supply comes in, what will be the fate of those developers? So some protections to that particular extent should be considered into the policy framework, and I would put it as enabler factor. Coming to the other side of technology, and this is where I was talking about that technology is one factor which we can deploy from various sources and deploy it. But more important is how this technology is going to help the economy of the rural village, because that is a target audience for which we are doing business. The need of their energy are to be understood. And once understood, then you provide a solution to tackle that. What we have seen in the rural environment, like in UP, especially, where we see the energy usage, segment by energy usage of that particular village. And we realize that the electricity, the diesel, the coal, the wood, and many such sources are being deployed, which are catering to the needs of the customer. Now, if the mini grid is a solution to all those things, we need to have a bundled package for this type of customers, helping them as a solution provider. And when we say solution provider, today we have seen a lot of micro enterprise have the DG set. And when we go and approach them, the first question they ask is, can mini grid operate such a big machine, 10 HP or 15 HP? The first question which comes to our mind is the awareness, whether these, how do we reach out to these rural customers and make them that mini grids are the solution provider for them. Having said that, the second question in the value chain is, even if they want to come to mini grid for the electric power supply, what is their intention? How we are enabling them to come on board? So providing financial assistance, providing right type of infrastructure, for example, energy efficient pumps of the motors, the know-how, bankability of the project for the funding, and many host of the things. He also comes back and says, what do I do with the existing assets? The DG set which is running, or those old solar inverter batteries are there. So we'll have to talk about the back end and front and back integration of those assets. That means this asset to be sold off, we help them to sell it off. So if you look at the entire value chain, then you're making a progress on that particular thing. And coming back on the mini grid, today we are talking about solar mini grid as a solution, but seeing the requirement of the load from the rural perspective, earlier the load used to be in the daytime, typically of lighting load, and some of the micro enterprises used to go up to 6 o'clock or so. But what we have seen with a lot of urbanization taking place, these loads also run up to 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. The mini grid cannot provide that type of power supply. You have to depend on the storage battery systems. So what we'll have to also say, can I bring in local energy sources, for example, the biomethane which we talked about, which takes the raw material from that same village, processes, and provide power supply to those rural enterprises during the off-peak period of the sunshine period. And there we will do it without polluting the environment, and the value chain remains in the village itself. And we feel that this could be a more sustainable way of running the mini grid business, and which we'll call it as a hybrid mini grid system, which have solar, wind, biomethane, biomass, and that type of sources which will complement or probably replace the DG sets. We're working on eliminating the coal usage in the village, especially for halwais and some of the people. So be biomethane for generating electricity, or replacing this bhattis in the villages with clean fuel for cooking purpose, and some other sources where the livelihood could be brought into. So that's the way we think this could be a sustainable solution. And to ISA, I also invite the member countries to visit microgrid of TP microgrid and see how we have created, deployed this ecosystem. And this will help them to see things very differently at their end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manoj Gupta. So giving the perspective and the very important dimensions for these all to encompass all the sources and all the different kind of loads, and including the timings which should be arranged. I think with that, because we are already overshoot the time by 15 minutes, I think we were very, very focused in our discussions. All the aspects of mini grid and the related challenges we have discussed, and you all of you have demonstrated this is possible and this is replicable. This is scalable. It's our responsibility of ISA to how we channelize and brings these models to the help of many of these countries which are looking at ISA for support, so that there is a synergy between a win-win situation is created for both the project developers as well as the people or the consumers there. So with that, let me conclude. I was just looking at, I think DG ISA had to exit for another meeting. So I would like to thank all of you, all the panelists for a wonderful involvement. And also I would like to thank all the countries joined virtually from various parts of, especially from the Africa, because ultimately, which I was just talking about, we are here to kind of bridge between the sustainable business models put forward by the developers here and the needy countries, so that there is a synergy, and then such models can be replicated, addressing the key challenges. So once again, many thanks to all the participants for this wonderful discussion. Many thanks.
Thank you so much.